Good morning, everyone. I am absolutely delighted to kick off today's session at this year's World Sustainability Forum 2020, a very challenging year, and today a very challenging topic indeed. We will be looking at the palm oil industry today, and we have some of the sort of greatest minds in the business and in the sector. And this session would look at various aspects of science and conservation and livelihood and social aspects in the area ranging from across the world: Indonesia, Honduras, Cameroon, etc. Today we will have a session in three sections effectively, which would first section would be looking at it from the bottom up, the role of women in palm oil, and also conservation through local efforts. We'll also be looking at the policy cost and then at governance and supply chain. I am delighted to be chairing this panel, and I have some absolutely brilliant presentation in store for you. And we will start the day looking at the role of women and the double burden or the double role of women in palm oil in Indonesia. To take us away, we have Dia Madianingsi, is that right?
Yeah.
IPS University in Indonesia, on the role of women in palm oil. Dia, the floor is yours.
Okay, I can share my screen now?
Sure.
Okay, wait a minute. Okay, good morning, everyone. First, I would like to thank to the committee of the its World Sustainability Forum, who has given me the opportunity to present the research and the food security and agriculture program today. On this occasion, I will present one of the studies under the Oil Palm Adaptive Landscape Project, which is a collaboration between IPB University, C4, and ETH Zurich University, with the title Impact of Oil Palm Development for Women, Double Role of Women and Livelihood Alternative Sources in Rural Household. I, Diah Ita Mardianingsih, represent Mr. Arya Hadi Darmawan and Faris Ramadian as a team, will present this issue and into introduction, methodology, result, and recommendation. Based on data from the Central Statistic Agency of Indonesia at February 2020, the number of women who are working in agriculture is around 1.8 million people as a daily casual worker. If we add the women who work as unpaid family worker, the number will be more big, almost 7.6 million people. And the development of the oil palm industry and the development of oil palm plantation in rural area has absorbed around 18 million people, who 60% are women. So this data show to us that women doing not just the role at the domestic sector as a wife, mother, or household manager, but they transfer to doing the public role as a laborer, and that make the phenomenon what we call the double role of women. And the issue in here is the double role of women usually make a discrimination versus the economic opportunity as an issue. And in this research, I want to see which activities is the double role in the women in the rural area, and what kind of contribution that women can give to the family related to the income household. This research was conducted in 2 villages that have a different type of oil palm management plantation. One is Muarakaman Ulu village as independent plasma household, which the management of plantation under management of cooperation. So it's like a communal management. And the other is Jonggon Jaya village, is represent the independent smallholder, with the management of the oil palm plantation under the household management. Here you can see the map of the 2 villages that located in the Kutai Kartanegara district is Kalimantan province. Before looking forward to the research result, I want to show the overview of the location, which is the Morakaman Ulu village have a total area is 329.8 kilometer, more larger than the Jonggon village. And we have the data about the smallholder household. It's just 35 households with the 34.5 hectare area under one control of cooperation. It's a different data with the Jonggon village because we didn't have the data at the village level. So I used the sub-district level where the Jonggon village and part of the 700 household in this district. The dual role of women in this study, I define into 4 activities. One related to the domestic role, the second related to the public role, the third is related to the agricultural production, or we can call in the family activities, family production activity, and the social activity. In the tradition or domestic role, we can see that the activity dominated by women to do. So the burden is mostly the burden of women compared to men. Whatever is cooking, washing, cleaning the house, children care, or saving money is the workload for the women. And the public role, between 2 locations, we have the different phenomenon where the MKU or Muarakaman Ulu dominated by women not working in the public sector. It's different with the Jonggon village, is most 45.7% is working as in public sector, like as casual dairy laborer in oil palm plantation companies, or as daily laborer in industrial forest plantation. So they work as a laborer. This is what the women usually do in the plantation, like fertilization activities, chemical treatment activities, manual maintenance activities, and collecting the FFB loose. Outside these activities, there is develop the what he call a middleman, but a woman actually doing buying the FFB from the smallholder. In production activities or on-farm activities, we can see the difference between two locations. In Muara Kaman Ulu, where the palm oil plantation managed by the cooperative, the family worker is not working in there. It's different with Jonggon village, where the activities from land clearing, then fertilizing, collecting the FFBLUs until the borrowing business capital is related to the woman. So women have the part in these activities. They work together as a wife and husband, working together to nurture their plantation. And other than these three activities, they still doing the social activities that usually doing weekly or monthly by meeting with other women or attend the ceremony like wedding, religious ceremony in the community. And if we try to see why a woman usually doing the work as a daily laborer or have a role in the public sector, the main reason usually is economic reason. In this figure, we can see how the economic of oil palm have the big contribution to the total income of the smallholder household. It's like we can see the yellow one, the income from palm oil plantation, like selling the fruit bunch, and the palm oil activity, but non-plantation, like as a laborer and palm oil company plantation. In the Jonggon village, almost more than 50% as part as the whole of the household income. So with this one, the rule of the oil palm activities as a livelihood alternative sources to the rural household income is very big, and women take a part in these activities. What can we discuss about the role of the woman, the double role of the woman and the alternative or source of income of the household? We just cannot neglect that the double role of woman will always continue or will continue to exist, because this is like first how the household still need to improve the family welfare, and one of the activities is use women as a laborer so they can get additional income. The other hand is part of the culture, part of the culture. In the some of Indonesian communities, helping the husband to work is kind of the service to the family. So if the women still have free time and not doing anything, is like a taboo. So they doing the public worker. And how the working as in the public sector sometimes is the reason for women to solve for their existence. So they want people to know that they can work. That's why the double role of women will always exist in this social community. The double role of women, I think it's not a problem, except is the double role of woman become a double of a burden for the woman, with the issue of like discrimination to women in the workplace or in the family. So in Indonesia, there's already some policy that we call responsive to gender to protect actually the female worker, but in the implementation is still need the commitment and consistency, because something the policy is working but another time is not work, or just like the government establish the woman worker shelter that usually built in near the industrial area is need to be increased in rural area. So worker in rural area can ask or need help. If they need help, they can ask the woman worker shelter. Some NGO also support the woman empowerment program, especially in the oil palm plantation area. They advocate how the worker to get the like the pipe more than no like more than the border of the pipe, so they get the more money for their work. And some companies still need to improve the safety and the security for women while they work in there, especially the women usually doing with the fertilizer and the chemical, so they need some improvement in the facilitation of safety and security. The other is maybe it's necessary to build like a child daycare center to help mother to take care of their children during the work, other than women working with the children. And this become another issue, because some issue like there is an issue how the children working in the plantation, but it's not a worker, but they just come with the mother, because the mother cannot just going alone and the children in their home. So that's what I can share for today presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is first of all, spot on time, and also absolutely, absolutely interesting. Very crucial points you make there. Sometimes, again, the role, the crucial role of women in this sector, either not well understood or not well known. So, thank you for this. Still in the from a bottom up approach, we're going to move to the next presentation. Odina Prameswari from Hokkaido University. I hope you're ready, because we are ready to rock with you. We're talking about conservation through localized livelihood. So please take us away. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Marcel, for the opportunity. Yeah, first of all, let me share the presentation with you. Is everything good there? Yeah. Can you see my slide already? Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you all. Good afternoon from Indonesia. Actually, I'm in Indonesia. I am Audina Manapmaswari from the Graduate School of Human Sciences and Humanities, Hokkaido University, Japan. And it was really such an honor for me to be one of the presenter of this oil palm session. And in this opportunity, I would like to deliver some challenges that Indonesia has to deal with in achieving the sustainable development goals from the very local level, oil palm farming household. So my research mostly will talk about oil palm farming household in a very specific area of conservation area, in Jambi province, which plays an important role for the global climatic belt for the future. Okay, so starts from the introduction. My research was inspired by the oil palm boom tragedy that occurred in Indonesia, which has resulted in a huge number of deforestation in all around Indonesian areas, particularly Kalimantan and Sumatra, and also in Jambi province, where I conducted my research. As you can see, the area is already changed into a yellow color here. It's supposed to be, it used to have a green color, but now it changed. The forest changed into a non-forest area. And if we see more close to Jambi province, there is one conservation area that I choose here. The name is Sultan Taha Saifuddin Grand Forest Park. It is one of the critical part of phytogeography area, and it is governed by the world's climatic belts to minimize the risk of climate change in the future. But in fact, there's only left around 50% of secondary forest there, and more than 50% is already dominated by the palm oil plantation cultivated by local dwellers as the result of competition over territories issue that's still going on there. And the worst part is there's also a huge number of petroleum oil extraction area and illegal oil mining activity done by the local dwellers as they lost their sense of belonging. And yeah, and it actually make the conservation area even more worse. So in this case, what I really want to discover here, I would like to understand the problem from two different perspectives. One is from the historical trajectory of the Sultan Taha Saifuddin Grand Forest Park, to understand to what extent the competition over territories occurred in Sultan Taha Saifuddin Grand Forest Park. And I also would like to understand the perspective. I would like to understand the reason why local dwellers done such an environmental degradation activities inside the conservation area by seeing what kind of land tenure insecurity pressure that they encountered, and to what extent the livelihood system could help them to survive. And at the end, I also would like to design a policy recommendation by considering both issue, the unsustainability of the conservation area and also the livelihood unsustainability of the local dwellers. And to do so, I use a mixed methodology, qualitative approach and quantitative approach. And yeah, qualitative approach here is used for answering the first question, to analyze the historical trajectory, and then also it is used to identify the adaptive mechanism of local dwellers. And next, it is a quantitative approach. I distributed 23 questionnaire. Sorry, I distributed questionnaire to 23 oil palm farming households living inside the conservation area and living near the illegal oil extraction area. And from this data, I am able to answer their income structure. I am able to identify their income structure and then expenditure structure using this standard mathematical formula. And then I also could answer the third question. I could measure their livelihood capital by following Quant A as my methodology. Here I identified their livelihood capital into by using these individual indicators. And move to my first result. Here, what I really want to show you is, it's not about the history actually, but what I found interesting here, within 10 years, if you look more specific to the limited production forest period and the conservation area period, within 10 years, the government of Indonesia did two types of territorialization with two different objectives. First, they would like to design it as a production forest, and second, they would like to design it as a conservation area, which made a dilemma to the local dwellers. They see that This is a good opportunity for them to occupy the forest land, as the government did not apply a strong law enforcement there. So what is going on right now is there is a competition where the government of Indonesia would like to they would like to consistently protect the area as a conservation area, although there is no forest left inside that. And there is also a local dwellers that currently fighting for transforming the forest land into a non-forest land through the demonstration and through many grassroots movement. And if we see, as I already mentioned before, as I also did study on the livelihood, here now I move to the livelihood studies. And here I represent to you 3 types of farming household. I categorize it into small, middle scale, and large scale. And I found that middle scale and small scale, they are really they are really dependent on the forest land, as they don't have any other sources besides the forest land. And for the large scale, they have the other sources. They have the land outside the conservation area that they use to lessen the pressure of land tenure insecurity. So in this slide, I can mention that there is a disparities. There's a discrimination or marginalization between small scale and middle scale and large scale, where the large scale, because they obtain 37% of non-forest land outside the conservation area, they are still able to legalize their palm oil production, and they can involve in the Indonesian Sustainable Palm Oil certification by certified their oil palm production through the land outside the conservation area, and they still can enjoy the government services by having the subsidies, and then also they have also a low risk of price volatility here because they involve in a farming cooperation group, which is only for the legal, which is only for the farmer with the legal land. But again, as I said before, the large scale here, they only could lessen their pressure. They could not totally escape as long as they still live inside the conservation area. So here is the land tenure insecurity that they encountered. They are prohibited to carrying out plantation activities. They have a high risk of livelihood assets loss, and then they could not, unlike they had an unlegalized palm oil production, and they are being recognized as a non-legitimate resident. And this is the income structure. In brief, small scale and middle scale, they have a similar pattern. They had higher dependency on non-agricultural activity, where involving in unlawfully oil mining activity becomes their second highest priority. And the large scale, they had really high dependency on palm oil production. So I can say that the smaller area of forest they had, the more dependent they will be to the non-agricultural activity, which is involving in unlawfully oil mining activity. And the more larger area that they had, the more dependent they will be on the palm oil production, which is bad which gives a negative impact for the sustainability of forests. And this is the expenditure structure. Small scale and middle scale, they mostly did land encroachment for survival, as they spend more in food consumption. And large scale, they did land encroachment for improving their standards of living. Yeah, so far this is the livelihood capital, and in general they had lack of social capital, human capital, and financial capital, and they only have more sufficient capital in the physical capital. And yeah, this is the adaptive mechanism. Small scale and middle scale had a limited adaptive mechanism, while the large scale, they are able to securing more asset because they had a lot of capacity. And lastly, it is about my conclusion. I can say that the competition of the territories has not only challenged the sustainability of the forest, but it also challenged the livelihood sustainability. And Indonesia still meets a lot of challenge in the local level, particularly in achieving goal number 1, no poverty, and goal number 15, which is life on the land. So we're still dealing with a lot of challenge to achieve the sustainable development goals. Yeah, I think I'm done. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Looking forward for the discussion session.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Udina, for this reality check, effectively, how these things happen on the ground and the challenges that especially smallholders do find in terms of putting or being able to navigate all the parameters. Still looking at a community aspect, but a slightly different one going into the policy space now. We're going to be speaking to Fideline. Fideline, are you on? Fideline is from Fidelismo Borigong is from WWF in Cameroon, and she will be looking at community-based policy analysis. Over to you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity. So basically, like Marcel has mentioned already, I'm Fideline Boringong from Worldwide Fund for Nature, Cameroon. And I'll basically be looking at our engagements around promoting sustainability in the palm oil sector in Cameroon, and some of the work we've done within the context of one of the projects we are working on, the Oil Palm Adaptive Landscape Project, aimed at exploring different scenarios to palm oil production and the impact on land use change and etc. So this work was basically done in partnership with the University of Yaoundé 1. So basically I give a context on Cameroon, like background information, some methodology, some results and conclusions. So basically Cameroon is a country in the Central African region, and agriculture is basically a backbone of the economy and employs about 70% of the workforce. And industrial palm oil is an integral part of the government development plan. The country is looking at becoming an emerging nation in 2035, and it looks at developing sectors like agriculture, mining, for example. Cameroon ranks 3rd in Africa and 13th in the world when it comes to oil palm production, with an estimated 450 tons in palm oil on about 300,000 hectares of land. And currently, the national demand stands at over 100 million tons, which means the country actually has a deficit of about maybe 70,000 tons. And in the past years, Cameroon has been importing palm oil from countries like Malaysia and Indonesia, but recently from Gabon. So currently we have 5 main agro-industries, but here when you look at the breakdown, you have 7, because then 3 of these companies are actually subsidiaries of the Bolloré Group, Socfin. So the agro-industries, they are producing on over about, I think, 150 hectares. And we also have a large smallholder population occupying an estimated 150,000 hectares, with an elite population also occupying about 50,000 hectares. So this is actually, it shows like the palm oil production belt in Cameroon, where you have the figures like from the southwest to the littoral, to the center region and to the coastal areas of Kribi. So to us, the Cameroon, the palm oil sector, we look at it as a non-performing sector. And this is because we actually have a deficit in terms of production, and the world ranked 13th, as far behind Indonesia and countries like Malaysia. And the production doesn't meet the domestic demand, which stands at about 1 million tons, like I've said before. And this is basically due to very low yields, non-performing seedlings, aging of plantations. We have plantations that were put in place like in the 60s, insufficient fertilizing, theft and corruption. So what are really the concerns when it comes to issues in the palm oil sector? We have deforestation, for palm oil production. There's climate change and the whole issues around climate change and the systems of transformation and the whole value chain. You have social issues and conflicts, mainly emerging from conflicts over land and challenges with land governance. You have loss of biodiversity because most of these agro-industries have been instilled in areas of biodiversity hotspots. And this means a change in habitats, degradation of landscape. So what is the solution? What is the proposed solution? The big issue is how do we meet the deficit, the current deficit in Cameroon? Do we get into oil palm expansion? Do we improve yields? Or do we improve our extraction rate, which is currently low at about 7%? So in the past, the government's approach has basically been around expansion when it comes to palm oil production. These are the trends we have seen on expansion, issuing new concession of palm oil plantations, mostly in ecologically sensitive zones. So some of the benefits and cons of these are actually, for the benefits, you have a creation of employment for people, revenue that's coming into the states, improve community livelihoods, but we also have the disadvantages of all of this, which is around biodiversity loss, forest loss, habitat fragmentation. It has an environmental cost and social conflicts. So what is really the problematic? The issue is how do we reconcile our desire maybe to increase production of palm oil, but at the same time, preservation of the forest and biodiversity in Cameroon. And we're seeing like, what are the prospects for sustainability when it comes to palm oil development in Cameroon? And over the last couple of years, we have been reflecting not just on the situation, but more around like, how do we influence policies through some of the information and the knowledge we have from the field. So a classical approach will be like, do we stay in a classical scheme where we do business as usual and focus on just issuing new plantations, or do we think about sustainable development? Cameroon has made enormous commitments when it comes to sustainability at the international level, but also nationally within our policies and all of that. And to us, we are proposing like we really need to move from a more classical way of doing things to a sustainable way of doing things. And here we are looking at considering three aspects on our engagement, especially around land governance, looking at how do land use improve livelihood for communities, how does it contribute to local development, but more importantly, how do we protect our high conservation value areas? So we actually did a study looking at one of the production areas in Cameroon, in the Southwest region, which is also a dense forest area. So we took like a case study to look at maybe landscape change, land use change over a couple of years. So for the methodology, we basically did literature review. We're looking at reports, trends, we're looking at scientific articles. We did field surveys between 2013 and 2020. So we issued about 550 questionnaires to local communities, but also talking to policy makers around the area. So we also used maps and satellite imagery, and we have also used like using the results to influence policy and engage decision makers. So one of the main things we discovered was oil palm in Cameroon. The total planted area so far stands at about 260,000 hectares. And the production, like I've said, currently is at 450,000 tons. And we have a deficit of about 700,000. And the turnover is over like 120 billion in Cameroon. It's creating jobs for about 100,000 people. Despite all of this, oil palm cultivation is also is a main source of deforestation in Cameroon. So between 2009 and 2014, in the sector alone, we had an annual deforestation rate of about 0.138%, which corresponds to a loss of around 150 hectares of forest per year. And from these, 74% of this concerned mainly oil palm, where oil palm agro-industries were located. And we also realized that the area of oil palm producers actually increased from about 46,000 hectares in 2009 to about 63,000 1,000 hectares in 2014. So when you look at this, it shows about the 35% increase in about 5 years, even though this was mainly from maybe already issued concessions, but from 2018, we have seen again an increasing surge when it comes to the issuing of new concessions for palm oil, with some agro-industries getting about 60,000 hectares of land for palm oil production. So in this area, we're looking at maybe like the main uses of land use, and we realized that in the area, about 46% of the area was covered with secondary forest, 37% was covered with dense forest, 11% was about just abandoned lands, and 5.56% was just others, that's including maybe homes and habitat for people. And so we're looking at this and saying if expanding palm oil production is really the issue, then we see like the trends are mostly these ecosystems, these forest areas receiving the agro-industries, and this automatically means an erosion of biodiversity in these areas like we've seen in the past years. And so the other results we're proposing, in conclusion, we're saying like the government needs to embrace an integrated approach when it comes to sustainability generally, not so much focus on the economic aspect, but building a synergy around economic viability, ecological sustainability, social sustainability. And these different components involves different things, with issues like the importance of putting in place a national land use plan, which is going to give a strategic orientation to the use of land in Cameroon. We are looking at issues like inclusive dialogue between stakeholders when it comes to land use governance generally, and we are looking at building a cooperation between agro-industries and smallholders generally. So, and the results for us in the integrated metrics, it actually means bringing together a lot of issues like driving policy. Sustainability is going to drive policy. We need to drive policy. We need to give a value to the palm oil value chain in Cameroon. We need to strengthen collaboration and really work on the zoning for the territory in Cameroon. So some of the things we've been able to achieve in the last couple of years is basically getting commitment from the government to develop a sustainable palm oil strategy, which is going to give strategic guidance to the palm oil sector in Cameroon, prioritizing smallholder schemes instead of large-scale plantations. There was a temporal halt in the issue of large concessions for agriculture in Cameroon from 2014, even though recently in 2019, we are seeing a new issuing of lands for oil palm plantations generally. And then also the commitment on voluntary sustainability standards. One of the big agro-industries in Cameroon is committed to get RSPO certified by 2021, which to us is a result because then the standard comes with its own exigencies on sustainability generally. And the country also has committed to initiatives like the African Palm Oil Initiative, which is based at guiding palm oil development in West and Central Africa. So for the conclusion, we are saying like to mainstream sustainability into the palm oil sector in Cameroon, we need to build around 4 levelers, and these are boosting productivity. We should be focused mostly around best practices, replanting, promoting benefit sharing, limiting the impact on deforestation, and maybe directing palm oil production more to degraded lands already, and focusing a lot on replanting since we have very old palm trees, and also putting in place an appropriate framework for good governance in the sector and generally around land use. And so for the conclusion, we are saying like when it comes to issues around sustainability, oil palm production is a yes, we need to do oil palm production, but we can do it anywhere and we can do it anyhow. We need to think of sustainable ways of actually developing palm oil production. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for this take and for a very detailed view of what is happening in Cameroon. What I take away here is that value creation in the sector and comprehensive policymaking are key, are not just key, but also complementary. Now, the great thing about this, our next speaker, is that it's sort of exactly in the same context, but value creation and comprehensive policy making. Ingrid, I think this is your cue. Our next speaker is Dr. Ingrid from Bern University of Applied Sciences, and she will be effectively looking at the social and environmental cost of development policies in Honduras. Ingrid, when you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. What a pleasure to be part of this session and to have the opportunity to also take you to another geographic area of the world where we're going to see similar problems. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about land use change, livelihoods, and economic development policies in Honduras, and what the implications for sustainable palm oil production are. So greetings to everyone. Good morning from Switzerland. Just to take you through the context. Well, Honduras, in the context of Latin America, is a large producer. However, if we look at the volumes of production and compare that to Indonesia or Malaysia, we're very far behind. However, palm oil is a key economic sector. It has been heavily promoted over the last few decades. It is estimated that by the end of this year, Honduras will produce about, well, a little bit less than 600,000 metric tons of crude oil, which will generate around $400 million in export revenue. There are over 100,000 people directly and indirectly employed in this industry. And currently there are about 180,000 hectares of palm oil production. Again, as mentioned previously, as the case in Cameroon and Indonesia, this is a sector where much of the primary production is in the hands of small-scale producers. Vast majority are poor. We're having problems around rapid expansion, also encroaching into forests. The policy framework is sometimes conflicting, and I'm going to take you through that. And that, of course, brings about environmental issues. And of course, this is also tied to the problem of land tenure and land right issues in Honduras. So this is quite an interesting thing. Palm oil production, how did it come about in Latin America and in Honduras? Honduras was the first country in the whole continent where palm oil was first brought. And it was actually brought during the era of banana production in Honduras. And it was brought to a botanical garden where it was planted in an arboretum. However, by the 1930s, it was evident that there would be a commercial potential for palm oil. However, it took a couple more decades before the expansion began. So this was around the 1970s. And this also happened at the same time when there were agrarian reforms in Honduras. A lot of change, a lot of land tenure changes in Honduras. And then through the 1980s and 1990s, there was gradual growth. And then I'm going to walk through some of the policies, particularly in 2006, that heavily promoted the use of biofuels and the expansion of the palm oil industry in Honduras. So if we look at the development of the sector in terms of volume, we can see that in this graph, you can see that from the 1970s and so on, yeah, the volumes were slowly increasing, but around the 2000s and after 2006, these volumes increased very rapidly. And in the lapse of 5 years, the production volume doubled. And as of 2020, the production volume in Honduras has tripled. So you can see that this is quite a rapid development. If we look at the whole value chain, we have about over 10,000 producers, over 100,000 people directly or indirectly employed. the land that they have tends to be small areas, and when they sell the fruit, they gain about 12 to 14% of the total market value. The scheme is very similar to the cases that we have seen before. There are a number of intermediaries. They tend to be large and have the logistics in place to be able to collect the fruit. They do get a larger margin than the small scale producers. Then we have the extractors and refineries, which were initially set up in Honduras. Now this is very interesting. They were set up as cooperatives. So 3 of them were initially set up in the 1980s, 70s and 80s as cooperative, and they have evolved. They're to this day private sector actors, if you will, and then Honduras actually has a market for palm oil, but a lot of it is also going to the export market. So main markets for Honduras tend to be at the regional level, mostly other Central American countries, and also Mexico. So just to bring you a little bit to the context, I know not many people know Honduras, but you can see that we're like the heart of Central America. And this is very important because this is, for the palm oil industry, this area right here in Central America is also an area with rich biodiversity, rainforest, and so therefore the expansion of the palm oil industry, although it brings about economic gains, it also has some environmental issues. Now let me show you this map about, it really reflects some of the land use change that has happened over the last decades in Honduras. So you can see that these areas marked in red, pink, these are the areas that have been highlighted as potential areas for palm oil expansion. And the black dots are the actual plantations. So this area in the northern part of Honduras is also an area, particularly more to this eastern side of Honduras. This is an area with heavy forest, and because this is the Caribbean coast of Honduras, also mangroves. And up until a few decades ago, another part of Honduras, more towards these industrial valleys, more toward the western part of Honduras, this is where a lot of the banana plantations were. So palm oil, as banana production has decreased in Honduras, palm oil has increased, and actually in terms of land use, it has replaced some of these banana or areas where banana was previously planted. If we look a little bit closer into these areas, these green areas are the palm oil plantations. And it's very interesting to see the projections for the next 10 years are that these areas will expand and actually also encroach into rainforest and mangroves. So in this slide right here, you see that the pink and red areas are areas where there's agricultural production or urban areas. And the green areas are, of course, the forests. And the yellow areas are the ones where palm oil will be, well, it's projected that the expansion is going to take place. This is a newspaper cutting that really highlights some of the risks. These areas marked in red are the national parks and protected areas. And there are reports that these areas are being affected by palm oil production, which of course from the environmental perspective is a huge risk. And of course there are the conflict of interest that happen when you have such a situation, and there is cause for much environmental concern. And if you look at the literature, and you're going to see that there are many reports that actually do highlight this current situation that is going on in Honduras. I did forget to mention one thing. This work that I'm presenting right now is really the backbone of a discussion paper, which is in the process of being edited and published. So it really goes into the discussion based on literature and previous studies that I have conducted in the sector in Honduras. Okay, so in terms of land use change, we can see two things. On one side, we know that palm oil production has indeed expanded into former banana production areas, but some forest areas have been placed at risk as well. And some of the environmental impacts include the replacement of tropical forests and other ecosystems, the loss of biodiversity, which has also been highlighted in all the other presentations. This, of course, brings about a breakdown of the ecological balance, increase in pests and so on, soil erosion and contamination, and pollution of water courses, which of course continue to deplete our water resources. And one of the main issues is, of course, coral reef contamination. And this is really quite a huge environmental impact and some cause for concern. So let me walk you through some of the policies, the policy framework in Honduras that brought about this expansion. The expansion, at least from my perspective as a researcher, has been strongly linked to some of the national policies. And some other researchers have also highlighted that although the potential for rural development has often been stated, and of course economic interests play a major role, these bring about incentives, land use permits, and agricultural and trade policies that encourage the development of these plantations, citing, for instance, the potential for rural development. Specifically, in 2006, there was the law of the production and use of biofuels in Honduras, which was submitted to the National Congress. And this led to a legal framework that encouraged biofuel production. This law was passed in 2007. And as soon as this law was passed, you can see that also there's this increase in the previous graph that I did show you, increase in the expansion of palm oil. So biofuels, it is within the country vision from 2010 to 2038, it is a vision that 80% of the energy in Honduras will be from renewable sources. So this means that some national plans have been put in place that promote renewable energy, biofuels, and then of course this is also grounds for the expansion of palm oil. Now, how climate change mitigation will be addressed, how regional development will happen, and how natural resources will be conserved, this is also part of the plan. However, I personally, I see that since 2007, there have been other issues that have not really made this plan work out as it was perceived, mostly because of political instability and some public-private initiatives that were promoted, and some of the other issues, for instance, conservation and so on, have, from my perspective at least, taken a lesser role in these policies. So just before I conclude, I want to mention, I really have to make reference to the land tenure and land right issues in Honduras. So in the 1970s era of agrarian reform and policies in Honduras, which meant that a lot of land was allocated to peasant farmers. Expansion of the palm oil began in the 1980s with a lot of private investments being made. Corporations, or initially the three large cooperatives started purchasing land. Then in the 1990s, it was the era of the Agrarian Modernization Law, which allowed for land purchases from corporations. And then, of course, this resulted in the reconcentration of land, particularly in this more eastern region of Honduras, the Aguan Valley. So currently in the 2000s, about 3/4 of this land is owned by one corporation. farmers report being coerced to sell land. And of course, with the policies that promote biofuels, there has been more promotion. And at the same time, a lot of antagonism between small-scale farmers and corporations. So this has led to an intensification of the land right conflicts, which up until this day, it's getting better, but it is still unresolved. So to come to a conclusion, well, yes, there is a lot of evidence, and if we look at the numbers and the economics of the sector, it's a very dynamic sector. It does bring jobs for a lot of people, and it has clearly had a positive economic benefit for the country. One important thing that I have to highlight is that small-scale farmers are still actively integrated into the value chain, so they still have the opportunity to produce, and it's almost always that they're able to have a very good link to the lead firms and sell palm, to sell the fruits. There are major trade-offs, as has been mentioned before, environmental implications of rapid expansion of plantations. The sector has experienced conflicts due to land right issues, policies that promoted growth in favor of biofuels for more sustainability that did not really address these implications. Although we are seeing some developments currently, changes with RSPO, there is a more integrated approach. There's a lot of work of NGOs in the sector. We have NGOs, big NGOs like Solidaridad, that are working together with small-scale farmers, that are looking at standards and practices and helping to promote a more sustainable approach. However, if we ask ourselves, is sustainable palm oil in Honduras possible? Well, I could say that despite the dynamics of economic growth with moderate, well, I would say moderate and some inclusiveness of small-scale farmers, there are still a lot of environmental and social issues that first must be addressed and resolved so that we can really have a sector that is indeed sustainable. So thank you very much. I hope I stayed within the time, the allocated time.
Wonderful, Ingrid, just in the nick of it. Thank you very much. That was extremely insightful. We've just seen two aspects of policy in the sector. The one thing that I take away here is that effectively it remains a complex process towards sustainability. But also what I take away is the sort of the governance implications that are behind all of this, whether it is in Cameroon, in Honduras, or Indonesia, where we are going back right now, looking at the implication of ISPO and implement on smallhold farmers. And we will have Rizka Amalia from IBP University to take us through that. Rizka, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marcel. Thank you for the opportunity for me. Today, I will present my research finding about the problem of acceptance of Indonesian sustainable palm oil, or ISPO, in international market and its complexity on the ground. This research is part of my PhD research, which is supervised by Dr. Arya Hadi Darmawan, Professor Dr. Lili Budi Prastyo, and Dr. Abdul Pacheco. And this research is funded by OPAL project. This collaboration between IPB, ETH Zurich, and ETH Zurich, and C4. Then here is an outline of my presentation, starting with introduction, problem statement, theoretical approach, state-of-the-art research methodology, discussion, and conclusion. As we know that oil palm is a flag crops commodity that is not only used for food, but also for feed, fuel, and industrial material. And also palm oil is more efficient compared with the soybean and rapeseed. Therefore, there is a large demand for palm oil, both nationally and globally. This means that palm oil play an important role in economy and at the national, regional, and local level, as shown by increased level of export, employment absorption, and income received by local communities. Oil palm plantation, oil palm is agricultural community that well known in local communities due to various form of relation of production organization and community integration in the palm oil sector. Palm oil also palm oil development has increased the number of women who work in the public sector. However, as you can see, the expansion of oil palm plantation has resulted in various ecological, social, and economic problem because oil palm is planted as more monoculture. It has caused ecological landscape change, including deforestation, habitat fragmentation, loss of biodiversity, and decreased quality of
Rizka, can you hear us? Can you hear me?
Problem not only for the nationally, but also for the global community. For this lead to respond in the form of government regarding sustainable of palm oil plantation, starting, as you can see, starting in 2004, where RSPO, then RAD, IICC, and ISPO. Despite the implementation of government towards sustainable palm oil plantation, the fact that there are palm oil in forest area amount 3.4 million hectare of total 16 million hectare of oil palm in Indonesia. So that's why this presentation focus on how is the acceptance of Indonesian sustainable palm oil, or ISPO, in international market with this complexity on the ground. Okay. This research I using analysis with theory framework from Bourdieu with habitus and Rhodes with network governance. As you can see, before, as we know that in the beginning, oil palm plantation as a commodity for poverty affiliation at the local level that give impact on ecological and social risk. And now, oil palm related with issues of sustainability and green governance. My research methodology, I using mixed methods, research approach, qualitative and quantitative, and I also analyze with land cover. I using two method with a companion modeling in level village, provincial village, and national village. My research location is two villages in Kalimantan, Indonesia, with the respondent is 31 respondent and 32 respondent. This next. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see in this picture, there are oil palm plantation which impact on land cover change. Land cover change occurred due to vacuum of policy during the transition of government from Suharto to Habibie. And then also regional policies about the program of 1 million hectare of oil palm plantation in East Kalimantan, and then also market force. And then as you can see in the left side, there are different pattern of expansion. In the left, we see that spread expansion, and then in the right, we can see that the expansion is clustered. This because the due to the degree of smallholder integration with companies, institutions like COPs and intra or extra village agency, such as middleman or broker. And then the speed level of oil palm expansion in Gunung to village or in Gunung Sari is faster than Sabintulung because presence of migrant. And then also there are intra or extra village agency such as middleman or broker also. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, this table in the palm oil sector, we know there are many agencies play a role in the palm oil. Many agencies there, as you can see, each agency have different roles and different agency, but the focus in this research is there are agency have a potential to damage the system of ISPO, such as smallholder and oil palm company without plantation, and then broker or middleman. So because of that, the government of Indonesia know that the problem of the palm oil in Indonesia. So Indonesia try revamp their revamping their oil palm plantation sector using Indonesian sustainable palm oil. It is sustainability standard driven by state. In the beginning, the ISPO start on 2011 and revised on to 2015, and then also revised on 2020. But as you can see, however, at the national level, there are policy in the national level, but however, at the regional level and regional level did not provide policies to support ISPO until 2018. And even now, there are also tenure issues at the local level, even though there have been various attempts to carry out various regulation and policy to deal with tenure issue at the local level, they have not completely resolved the tenure issue. And so that because of we know because of the absence of policy in the local level, so the impact on the ground is the capital of knowledge of a smallholder about sustainability standard is low. As you can see, the red one is actual data I collect the from smallholder, and then the brown one is the ideal data. Is there is a gap in smallholder knowledge about the certification system due to the lack of socialization and assistance from the government, because the government capacity is low about the financial and human resources. impact of the law of knowledge about the sustainable palm oil. So a smallholder not compliance sustainability standard. As you can see in the ISPO, in the land legality, business legality, and environmental legality, most of smallholder do not compliance of that because time consuming and expensive to process the business legality, environmental legality, and land legality. The conclusion is, as we know, why the market do not accept the ISPO, because we know that ISPO have a complexity in ISPO implementation have a complexity on the ground. It's because the agency such as smallholder do not comply with and has the potential to damage the ISPO certification system, and then formal institutions such as COP and palm oil companies without plantation has potential to damage the ISPO system because they are buying FFB from an unclear area. And then informal institution such as broker has potential to damage to the ISPO system because they are buying FFB from unclear area too. And then in the doxa or a rule of ISPO, or the policy in the national, regional, and local is delaying to emergence of the regional policy that support ISPO, and then the absence of policies at the local level that support ISPO. And then impact of that, the capital of knowledge of smallholder is low. So ISPO do not able to habituate the agency to sustainability norm. So that's why problem of traceability remain, and then the impact is problem of acceptance ISPO in international market. We know that after this finding, I try what we call it. I try to conclude or result about my research finding that not oil palm plantation in Indonesia are in forest area. Oil palm is green gold, which can not only used as food, feed, fuel, and industrial material, but also to affiliate poverty in rural areas. As we know that 40% palm oil is cultivated by smallholder. Now Indonesia is focusing to revamping the palm oil sector to so that the government makes various policy to support sustainable palm oil, such as using a national action plan for sustainable palm oil, moratorium and ISPO and etc. And then developing sustainable palm oil is important matters. However, the fact is the development sustainable palm oil face many challenges based on this. So the recommendation is we have to support the sustainable palm oil because it can resolve the impact of the oil palm plantation. So we need support from world community by premium price funding for supporting smallholder or on certification.
So Rizka, I'm afraid we'll have to cut you off here. But your final slide is very comprehensive, and thank you for running us through this. Otherwise, we'll be borrowing, in fact, stealing time from Fakhrizal, who's got the pleasure to take us through the last 10 minutes of our session. Look, my takeaway that effectively here, what we're looking at is that the lack of local support for ISPO implementation. And thank you for taking us through the speakers through the sector participants. Speaking of which, Fakhrizal Nashar will take us through multi-dimensional supply chain analysis in the last 10 minutes. He is from IBP University in Indonesia. Fakhrizal, when you're ready.
Yes. Can you see my slide and also my voice now?
We can see your slide. You're up and ready.
Okay. So thank you, Marcel. So I'm going to So I'm going to present on the last episodes of this our project Oil Palm Adaptive Landscape in East Kalimantan. The title of the research is the Sustainability of Oil Palm Multi-Tier Supply Chains. And this has been supported by also co-researcher, which is Dr. Insinyur Eka Intan Kumala Putri, and also Dr. Insinyur Arya Hadi Darmawan, and Professor Dr. Insinyur Ahmad Fauzi. We know that the outsourcing and global sourcings have been created more complex and also more fragmented supply chains. And this research is going to cover what is actually the situations in the village level, which is the smallest unit in Indonesia. We know that Indonesia is divided by province, and province is divided by districts, and the smallest unit that capable of running and governing their own area is the village government level. So I'm going to present this into 5 parts, which is the problem statement, and then we're going through the regional supply chains, and then I'm going to discuss about the triadic relationship typology and what's the status of the sustainability dimensions there, and then also we're going to conclude with discussions. So we know Indonesia is on the hotspots of deforestations since actually the last 2 decades, and actually after 2008, the UNFCCC spot about the reductions of the emission from deforestation and degradations. If we see East Kalimantan, this is part of the Borneo Island, which is the biggest island in the world. But East Kalimantan is the biggest province in this island. And if you can see from the Hansen's data sets since 2000, there has been 1.5 million forest conversions. And then even in the last decade, the peak of deforestation still happening. And then one of the triggers of this is because of the oil palm expansion. If we go to our research district, which is East Kutai district, and in this Kutai Kartanegara district, this is the size of Belize in Europe, maybe, if you're familiar with that. So it's around 2 million hectares of land. And this area is mostly covered by forests. But then from the last 2 decades, it has been, the landscape has been so much changed. And then the deforestations from the oil palm sector has been triggering this change. If you can see the multi-tier supply chains, it's starting from the village level, and then this is actually because of the complexity of this supplier, which is the smallholder farmers, to the supplier, which is mostly governed by the middlemen also, and this is non-formal institutions, and the mills. Most of this the complexity of these problems of the illegal occupying of forest area, it's only happening on the upper part of this whole supply chains, which is only from the smallholder farmers up to the mills. But this complexity, even until now, has not been resolved in Indonesia. So we're going to use this from the glass of the multi-tier supply chains. From this perspective, it will simplify how we're going to see what kind of typology that's happening in different villages in Indonesia. So not only by looking into the multi-tier supply chains perspective, but also we're going to measure what's the sustainability of the different typology in different village. Because all of these multi-tier supply chains, at the end, we're going to impacting to the rural development. So this is actually the model. They call it the triadic relationship between the supplier, which is the smallholders farmers, into the supplier. In formal way, this should be run by the cooperative, but in non-formal way, this usually run by the middleman. And then through this focal agent, it's going to be sold into the oil palm mill. And then from oil palm mill, they're going to ship it to the refinery and then also exporting abroad. This is actually the problems of these triadic relationships in the village level that also influencing the rural sustainability. Most of the smallholder farmers, they have a problems of they not belong to any cooperative. They have a very low quality input. They don't have land certificate. They don't have, most of them, they don't have access to certified seedlings. They don't have financial access. And then there's also a big dependency for the middleman and low profit margin. But then how are we going to check all of this? So this research, we checked through three different areas: the upper area of the Kutai Kartanegara, the Meso area, and also the lower area. So we're going to take all of these exemplary from all of the landscape. So this is the story of the East Kalimantan as a whole. Most of our oil palm exported to Angola, China, Croatia, Haiti, and then some other countries. East Kalimantan is number 35, the biggest exporter in Indonesia province, of the whole Indonesia province. And Kutai Kartanegara is one of the pioneer that they've expanding the oil palm industry. So having seen on this diagram, we can see that most of the oil palm that being processed in East Kalimantan is not refined in East Kalimantan. So there's a huge leakage happening in here, and then most of the usage of this, the forward linkages of this industry it's happening in Java Island and also in Sumatra Island and Sulawesi Island. So most of the East Kalimantan, they only get the profit margin actually from processing it, and then they sell it. But for the farmers, they only get it only from the margins of the nationally already set price for the FFBs, the fruit fresh bunches. And then if you can see the concentration of oil palm industry in Kutai Kartanegara district, it's spread over quite evenly from the upper part, the meso, and then also the lower part. And then it's mean that it has been developed quite evenly from all over this landscape in the last 30 years. And then,
Rizal, sorry to interrupt. You've got about 2 minutes, unfortunately.
Okay, so I'm going.
So,
I can just
I'd hate for
I'm
you
going
not
to just
tell
close
us
it.
what you found.
Okay, just I'm going to close it. So this is the finding. We have actually the best, the ideal relationship is what we call it close triad typology, where the smallholder farmers is already connected directly with the mills. But then what happening? This only happen on the upper part of the area, which most of the oil palm mill has commitment to implement this non-deforestation and peat commitment. But then what happened on the rest of the area? They are on the transitional triad typology and open triad typology, which is they don't have really communication between oil palm mill standards and the smallholder farmers. So just to conclude, so what we need actually from this research, we need to focus on the strengthening of the smallholder farmers. We need also to encourage for the new village economic institutions, and then supporting for the smallholder farmers to apply certifications of ISPO and also having added value through RSPO. Maybe that just that to conclude. Thank you, Marcel.
Thank you so much, Fakhrizal. Thank you, everyone, and hope to keep enjoying this call. Fantastic day, a fantastic start in the day, a wonderful program ahead of us, and all I have to do now, right on time, bang on time, is to thank you all and to congratulate all the panelists and the team at the World Sustainability Forum. I'll be speaking to you individually very soon. I hope you can make your presentations available if that is expected, and have a wonderful day. Let's keep having exciting conversations and enjoying what we do and our research. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marcel. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Very good. Thank you for also from my side, from the presenters. We are now setting up the next session.